You know that feeling, right? You open a bag of chips and somehow, almost without thinking, it's gone. But when's the last time you accidentally overate on, say, apples or broccoli? The answer, it turns out, isn't about some personal failure of willpower. It's about design. And today, we are going to break down the exact science of why modern processed foods are engineered to be so incredibly hard to stop eating.
Let's just start with one single, really powerful number: 60%. That right there is the percentage of calories the average American gets from ultra-processed foods. So we're not talking about some small niche problem. This is the very bedrock of the modern diet for millions of people. Welcome to TrendDecoded. On this channel, we use structured analysis to make sense of the complex systems that shape our reality. And honestly, few systems have a bigger impact on our daily lives than the one that engineers the food all around us.
Okay, to really get to the bottom of this, we first have to kind of shift our thinking. For decades, right? We've been told to focus on the nutrients on the back of the box: fat, sugar, carbs, sodium. But what if the most important factor isn't the nutrients themselves, but the level of industrial processing a food has gone through? This is exactly where a framework called the NOVA classification system becomes absolutely essential. The NOVA system is actually pretty brilliant because it neatly sorts food into 4 groups. Group 1 is the obvious stuff, whole foods just as you'd find them in nature. Group 2, those are the ingredients we cook with, like oil, salt, or sugar. Group 3 are your simple processed foods. Think canned tomatoes or basic cheese. But it's Group 4 that we really need to focus on today: ultra-processed foods, or UPFs. And listen, these aren't just slightly modified foods. They are, for all intents and purposes, industrial formulations. They're built from substances extracted from other foods and packed with additives you would never find in your own kitchen. Things like hydrogenated oils, flavoring agents, and high fructose corn syrup. And here's the most crucial part. These Group 4 foods don't just happen by accident. Oh no, they're the product of intense, meticulous, scientific engineering. And the #1 goal of that engineering is to hit something they call the Bliss Point. The whole concept of the Bliss Point was really pioneered by a guy named Howard Moskowitz, a psychophysiologist. It is essentially the Goldilocks zone of flavor, and it's found by running thousands of consumer taste tests and plugging all that data into complex models. The whole point of this formula is to perfectly hijack our brain's ancient survival wiring. See, for our ancestors, finding foods packed with salt, sugar, and fat was rare, and it was a huge survival advantage. The Bliss Point takes that old instinct and cranks it up to 11, creating a pleasure response so intense that it can literally shout down our body's natural signals that tell us we're full. Now, what's fascinating is that our bodies actually have a really smart, built-in defense system to stop us from eating too much of any one thing. It's a mechanism that pushes us to eat a variety of foods to get different nutrients. But just like UPFs are designed to hit that bliss point, they are also designed to systematically dismantle this very defense system. That defense mechanism is called sensory-specific satiety. And put simply, it just means the more you eat of one food, the less tasty it becomes. It's your brain's way of gently saying, all right, we've had enough of this flavor, let's find something else. It's what drives us to eat a balanced diet, and it is the #1 target for food engineers to overcome. So how do they do it? Well, there are 2 main strategies. The first one is this delicate balance between complexity and blandness. The flavor is crafted to be interesting enough to keep you coming back, but not so strong that your senses get overwhelmed and tired. It cleverly avoids that sensory burnout, so you can just keep eating. The second strategy is what's known as the buffet effect. By packing a whole bunch of different flavors and textures into one single product, or across a single meal, they are constantly resetting that satiety mechanism. Each new sensation feels fresh and keeps your appetite going. It's pretty wild. In lab studies, just introducing more variety has been shown to make people eat as much as 44% more food. For a long, long time, scientists saw this clear link, this correlation between diets high in ultra-processed foods and all sorts of negative health outcomes. But the big question was always, does the food itself cause the overeating, or is it just a coincidence? Well, in 2019, a groundbreaking study finally gave us a definitive answer. The design of this study was just beautiful in its simplicity. Dr. Kevin Hall at the NIH ran the first ever randomized controlled trial of its kind. He took 20 healthy volunteers and had them live in a clinical center for a month straight. For 2 weeks, they ate nothing but ultra-processed foods. For the other 2 weeks, they ate nothing but unprocessed foods. The diets were perfectly matched for everything: calories, sugar, fat, fiber, you name it. The only thing that was different was the level of processing. And this quote from Dr. Hall himself really says it all. After all those years of just seeing associations, this study finally proved a direct cause and effect relationship. It showed, without a doubt, that the processing itself, not just the nutrients, was the thing driving the behavior. And the results, they were just stark, absolutely unmistakable. These folks could eat as much as they wanted whenever they wanted. On the ultra-processed diet, they just unconsciously ate an extra 500 calories a day and gained about 2 pounds. Then when they switched to the unprocessed diet, they spontaneously ate 500 calories less and lost about 2 pounds. Think about that. The weight gain wasn't a conscious choice, it was a direct biological reaction to the food they were given. Breaking down a complex topic like this into its core, understandable parts is exactly what we try to do here at TrendDecoded. So if you're finding this explainer useful, taking a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel really is the best way to support our work and help us make more. Okay, so far we've talked a lot about taste and behavior, but the story actually goes even deeper than that, right down into our core biology. It turns out that ultra-processed foods can also disrupt the vital communication highway that runs between our gut and our brain. To understand this piece of the puzzle, we have to look at a group of additives that are found almost only in ultra-processed foods, emulsifiers. You've seen them on ingredient lists. Their job is to improve texture and keep things like oil and water from separating. They're in pretty much everything, from ice cream and bread to salad dressings. This slide lays out a really critical chain reaction. New research is showing that some common emulsifiers can actually wear down the protective mucus layer that lines our intestines. When that happens, gut bacteria can get too close to our intestinal wall, which throws our whole microbiome out of whack. This so-called leaky gut can then let bacterial toxins seep into our bloodstream, which creates this low-level inflammation all over the body. And here's the kicker. That whole process messes with the release of the very hormones that are supposed to signal to our brain that we're full. So, let's pull all these threads together. What we're really looking at here isn't a bunch of separate issues. It's a cohesive, interlocking system where every single part is designed with one goal in mind: to drive overconsumption. So, to recap. First, you've got the psychological engineering of the Bliss Point, making the food hyperpalatable. Second, you have the biological subversion of our natural "I'm full" mechanisms, letting us eat way past the point of satiety. Third, you have the physiological disruption from additives like emulsifiers, which damage our gut-brain signaling. And finally, you have the rock-solid causal proof from that NIH trial showing that this whole system works exactly as intended, leading directly to eating more and gaining weight. And that really brings us to the final and maybe most important question. If all this evidence shows that overeating these foods isn't really a failure of character, but a predictable biological response to an environment that's designed to overwhelm us, well, it kind of shifts the whole conversation, doesn't it? It moves it away from blaming the individual and toward questioning the design of the entire system. Thank you for joining this analysis from TrendDecoded. If you found this breakdown insightful, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more structured explainers on the systems that shape our world. This content is for educational and informational purposes only and is based on the referenced materials. It does not necessarily reflect the personal opinion of the channel owner and should not be considered professional advice.